Welcome to episode 219. Today on Book Chat, I am sharing with you my highly anticipated books of July through September 2018. I hope you enjoy these book recommendations. Stay tuned. Today's episode is brought to you by audiobooks.com. New customers get one free audiobook when using our promo code AudioShelf. You just need to enter the code AudioShelf on the sign-up page, then click Apply, then fill out the rest of your account info. Support this podcast by using our code AudioShelf and get your first audiobook free. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. If you are new here, welcome. If you're returning, I'm so glad you're here. On Book Chat, we get bookish with roundtable book discussions, book recommendation lists, interviews, and more. Be sure to check out shelfaddiction.com for even more content. If you'd like to comment on something you've heard during today's episode, please find me on Twitter or Instagram at Shelf Addiction, or call in and leave an internet voice message via SpeakPipe. The links for everything you need related to today's episode are below in the show notes. So let's jump into it. First up for July, I have two thrillers/mysteries for you. The very first book is The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. Now, this is a very interesting sounding book. It was published on July 3rd by Dutton. It is 384 pages on a Kindle, and this sounds really creepy so far. So it's been out a few weeks so far as of today. It's about 2,500 ratings on Goodreads.com with an average of 4.22 out of 5 for a rating. So that tells me all good things. I'm super excited for this one. I'm going to share this with you by reading a little bit from the synopsis. 2 truths and a lie. The girls played it all the time in their teeny cabin at Camp Nightingale. Vivian, Natalie, Allison, and the first-time camper Emma Davis, the youngest of the group. The games ended when Emma sleepily watched the others sneak out of the cabin in the dead of night. The last she or anyone saw of them was Vivian closing the cabin door behind her, hushing Emma with a finger pressed to her lips. Well, okay, guys. Now, if you guys are Pretty Little Liars fans, I wonder, I really do, if this has like that Pretty Little Liars feel. With the whole falling asleep and, waking up and people are missing, that really reminds me of that. But I can tell from the rest of the synopsis that this is told in present and past tense with Emma as the main character. So that should be pretty interesting to read. I perused through some of the reviews, and so far it looks like people are really digging this. They are comparing it to things like The Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. So if you like a really good thriller/mystery, definitely check out The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. Now, tell me if you've read this already. This is on my TBR. It's on my short list. So I anticipate having this done really quickly, maybe in the upcoming month, but I'm really, really excited for this one. So please hit me up on Instagram or Twitter and let me know if you've read this already, or if you've read anything else by Riley Sager. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Okay, so the next one is 3 Days Missing by Kimberly Bell. This was released on July 1st by Park Row. The page count is 352 in the Kindle edition, and this is again another thriller/mystery. And I'll read a little bit from the synopsis as well. It's every parent's worst nightmare, the call that comes in the middle of the night. When Kat Jenkins awakens to the police on her doorstep, her greatest fears realized. Her 9-year-old son, Ethan, is missing, vanished from the cabin where he'd been on an overnight field trip with his class. Shocked and distraught, Kat rushes to the campground where he is last seen. But she's too late, and the authorities have returned from their search empty-handed after losing Ethan's trail in the mountain forest. Okay. All right, guys. I like a good true crime story, and this kind of has that vibe right off. And another little blurb they have is, when a child goes missing, 2 mothers' lives collide in a shocking way in the suspenseful novel from the best-selling author of The Marriage Lie. Now, last summer, I think it was, The Marriage Lie was really popular and making the rounds. And I do have this book right now. I received it on the summer reading challenge put together by Book Sparks. So this is something that I definitely will be reading very soon. Friends that I know that also read this genre are enjoying it so far. So again, it came out on July 1st and it has a 4.06 rating on Goodreads right now. So I'm very interested to see where this story goes, the twists and the turns. So I'm really looking forward to this title. If you've already read 3 Days Missing, I'd love to hear what you thought of it. Again, feel free to hit me up on social media. I always want to know what you think of these titles that I'm recommending. As we move into August, we are really going to change up the pace here, and we are going to read some young adult fantasy. The first book I'd like to recommend in August is Mirage by Samaya Dowd. And I'm saying her name right, I hope. It's spelled a little differently than what I'm familiar with, but I think it sounds the same. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Mirage definitely fits the bill for that YA fantasy science fiction groove, which everyone has been all about for the last several years. So I'm going to read a little bit to you about this. In a star system dominated by the brutal Vathic Empire, 18-year-old Amani is a dreamer. She dreams of what life was like before the occupation. She dreams about writing poetry like the old world poems she adores. She dreams of receiving a sign from Daya that one day she too will have adventure and travel beyond her isolated moon. Oh, okay. I really love a good space story. And that is what this is. But not only is it a space, it takes place in space, it's a completely different world than we know. And I always love fantasy where they are die hard on the world building. Like, we are not on Earth. We are not in our solar system. It's just a whole new place, a whole new thing. I am all about that. I also love the fact that our protagonist is 18 years old. So that really lends itself to a little bit more advanced things happening in the book, and not, without us having that OMG factor, like, why is a 16-year-old doing A, B, and C? So I like that the protagonist is 18. Reading on in the synopsis, it becomes very clear very quickly that Amani is almost identical to a very cruel half-Vathic princess Miriam. So let's find out what this is about. Like, obviously, is this some kind of like switcheroo? Does something happen to the princess and Amani has to step in? Is she considered the princess, because she's fitting in her place? What's up with that? I'm intrigued by it all. And not to mention, so far, this book isn't even published yet, but the early reviews are giving it a 4.25 out of 5. I'm super, super, super excited for this. I know I've said that quite a few times, but I really am. And actually, this is on my shelf downstairs. I was lucky enough to pick up a copy of this when I was in New York for Book Expo. So I will definitely be reading this before it comes out in August. Be sure to be following the blog if you'd like to see an early review on Mirage. All right, so my second pick in August is a dystopia title, and I have not read a really good dystopian book in a long time. And this is another one of those genres that were really, popular a few years ago. Everyone was reading dystopia, but it's kind of, taking a lull. But I'm super excited about Vox by Christina Dalcher. This comes out August 21st by Berkeley. The hardcover is 336 pages. And this is another book that I was fortunate to get my hands on at Book Expo. So I'm going to read a little bit of the synopsis to you, and then we'll talk about it. Set in America where half the population has been silenced, Vox is the harrowing, unforgettable story of what one woman will do to protect herself and her daughter. On the day that the government decrees that women are no longer allowed more than 100 words daily, Dr. Jean McLennan is in denial. This can't happen here, not in America, not to her. This is just the beginning. Wow. Okay, so I see where this is going, and that is downhill at a breakneck pace, okay, as far as the government is concerned in the book Vox. Okay, reading on a little bit in the synopsis, women can soon no longer hold jobs. Girls are no longer taught to read or write. Females no longer have a voice. Wow, this really sounds like Gilead, doesn't it? It really sounds Handmaid's Tale-ish, minus the whole, being forced to have sex with people, right? So it really reminds me of that at the synopsis. And I've got to read it. I mean, lately I've been all into the Handmaid's Tale and I have missed reading dystopia. So I'm curious to see what Christina Dalcher's take is on this type of story. I don't think I've ever read technically a feminist dystopian fiction title, aside from The Handmaid's Tale. So yeah, I'm all about this. I'm curious to see what's up with it. If you plan on reading Vox, or if you have been lucky enough to get your hands on an early copy and you have read it, I'd love to know what you thought of it. Okay, so we're going into September, back in my wheelhouse of fantasy. And this is one that I have been waiting on for a really long time. I also have a copy of this book right now sitting on my TBR shelf, and I am really dying to get to it, but I have so many things to read ahead of it. Without further ado, we are talking about Time's Convert, which is the first book in the All Souls universe by Deborah Harkness. So this is a book published by Viking. It comes out September 25th. It is 400 pages on Kindle, and this takes place in the All Souls universe, as the, title of the series says. If you wonder, what is the All Souls universe? I will say to you, where have you been? Have you not read the Discovery of Witches trilogy? If you haven't, get on it ASAP. It's so good. And not to mention, there is a TV show being adapted for that right now. But Time's Convert is probably similar to the other ones in the fact that it is a time travel vampire paranormal story. So I suspect that we're going to be moving back and forth in time, just like we did in the Discovery of Witches trilogy. It is set in contemporary Paris and London and the American colonies during the upheaval and unrest that exploded into the Revolutionary War, a sweeping story that braids together the past and present, as I thought it would. Now, not only do we get to revisit Matthew de Clermont, who we know from Discovery of Witches, but we meet Marcus. Now, we all know Marcus. We've been waiting on Marcus's story, and here it is. So we get to learn all about Marcus, and we get to see, how he meets Phoebe Taylor. And this is going to be super exciting for those of us that are familiar with these characters. But for those of you that are not familiar with these characters, I do believe that you will be able to start here and not feel lost at all, because it is a different series in this same world. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that Harkness will provide enough cushion, enough history for you to know what's going on without feeling lost. And being that, we are fully into the Revolutionary War, I'm sure there's more than enough material here that we won't even really need to delve into a Discovery of Witches that much. Now, this already has good ratings on Goodreads.com. Everyone who also has an early copy, they're already reviewing this thing, and it's at 4.31 out of 5. And I cannot even say how excited I am for this. So, and you definitely don't want to miss Time's Convert. Put it on your pre-order list today and let me know if you're going to be reading it. All right, my second book for September and the last for this list is Wildcard Warcross 2 by Marie Lu. Okay, if you guys did not read Warcross, you definitely should. It's a young adult science fiction trilogy. I believe it's a trilogy, and it is all about gaming. And I haven't read a book about gaming in a long time. Wildcard is due to be published September 18th by G.P. Putnam Sons Books for Young Readers. In hardcover, it comes in at 352 pages. And like I said, this is science fiction / fantasy. It's also young adult. Now, like I mentioned earlier, it's all about gaming. And I have never read a YA book about video games and virtual reality that I really enjoyed like I did Warcross. So definitely you want to read Wildcard after Warcross because this is a continuation, obviously. So let me give you a little bit from the synopsis. Amika Chen barely made it out of the Warcross Championships alive. Now that she knows the truth behind IDEO's new Neuralink algorithm, she can no longer trust the one person she's always looked up to, who she once thought was on her side. Okay, real fast. Hideo was kind of on Amika's team. They worked together until she found out he did something or planned something. I'm not going to give you any serious spoilers here. And now, she has to try to go against him to stop his Neuralink algorithm. And it's virtual reality. So, people are wearing headsets. They're in this virtual reality game where they spend all their time there. They spend their money there. They even walk around in the real world with these headsets on and all of these. They're paying for pixels, the whole nine. You guys know how gamers are. You know this, right? So this is all about that world. And of course, trying to save the real world from an algorithm. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. I'm curious to see how the next part of this trilogy goes. And like I said, I believe it's a trilogy. At this point it is anyway. That could always change in the future, but I'm definitely excited to find out the next part of the Warcross story with Wildcard. So if you've read Warcross, I would love to know, did you love Warcross? Or did you not really like it that much? I want to know, because tell me, please. I don't know anyone else in my circle that has read Warcross. All right, you guys, so you've got my 6 highly anticipated books of the third quarter, July through September. And as you know, there are always so many books coming out every single week. There's just no way I can capture them all in this podcast. We'd be here for hours. So if you have one that you are especially looking forward to that you think I should check out, please reach out to me. I always love getting book recommendations, and my TBR list for the next several months is pretty overflowing. I don't know how or when I'm going to be able to read all these books, but I have lofty goals. All right, everyone, that is it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I will catch you guys on the next book chat. Take care, everyone. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that love pop culture, from books and audiobooks to TV and movies. I'll see you next time here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast.